I still remember the exact shape of my husband's handwriting on that note. 3 words. Tonight, just listen. He left it on my pillow before leaving for work, folded carefully like it carried something fragile inside it. No explanation, no teasing smile, no follow-up message during the day, just an address written underneath. And somehow, that silence stayed with me longer than any confession could have. By the evening, I had changed outfits 3 times. Nothing felt right. Every mirror in the house seemed to ask the same question. I was too nervous to answer myself. What exactly was he asking me for? The jazz lounge was hidden beneath an old hotel downtown, tucked behind a narrow hallway lit by amber lamps, the kind of place that felt untouched by time. Soft piano drifted through the air like smoke. Candlelight flickered across velvet walls. Couples sat close together in quiet conversation, their voices low enough to disappear into the music. But what unsettled me most was the curtain. Deep red velvet stretching across the far side of the room. Private, secretive, intentional. My husband noticed me staring at it immediately. His fingers found my wrist under the table, tracing slow circles against my skin. Not demanding, not nervous, just waiting. And when I looked at him, really looked at him, I realized something that made my heartbeat stumble. He wasn't relaxed. He was emotionally holding his breath. I wanted tonight to feel different, he said quietly. The candlelight softened his face, but I could still see the tension in his jaw. Weeks, maybe months of hidden thoughts sitting behind his eyes. Different how? I whispered. He smiled faintly, like you're being seen. That answer stayed inside me long after the waiter disappeared with our drinks. For a while, nothing happened. Just music. The piano player moving through slow melodies while conversations rose and fell around us like waves. My husband barely touched his glass. He kept watching me instead. Every expression, every breath. Then the lights dimmed slightly, and a voice came from behind the curtain. Low, cone, unhurried. Good evening. The entire room seemed too quiet around those 2 words. I couldn't see him. Not even a shadow at first, only the sound of his voice reaching through the velvet divide like he was, sitting beside me instead of hidden. Behind layers of fabric and darkness, my husband's hand tightened slightly around mine. You can answer honestly here, the voice said gently. No one is asking you to perform. Something about that sentence unsettled me in the best possible way, because he was right. No one had asked me that in years. Not directly, not without expectation attached to it. The stranger spoke slowly, almost conversationally, asking simple questions that somehow didn't feel simple at all. When do you feel most beautiful? I opened my mouth immediately, then stopped, because I realized I didn't actually know anymore. The room felt warmer suddenly. My husband stayed completely silent beside me, but I could feel his attention fixed entirely on me. Not protective, not possessive, captivated. I think, I said carefully when someone notices small things. Like what? I swallowed. The way I look at something before I speak. The way I play with my rings when I'm nervous. Little things. The voice behind the curtain paused for a moment. Then perhaps, he said softly, you've spent too much time around people who only notice the loudest version of you. The words landed deeper than I expected. Beside me, my husband exhaled slowly. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't about another man. Not really. This was about my husband wanting someone else to pull something hidden out of me, so he could witness it too. That realization changed the entire night. The questions continued. Not invasive, not inappropriate, just intimate in ways I wasn't prepared for. What scares you more? The stranger asked eventually, being wanted, or being understood. I laughed softly under my breath, but there wasn't much humor in it. Understood, I admitted. Why? I stared down at the candle between us. Because once someone truly sees you, you can't hide anymore. Silence followed. Not awkward silence, the kind that wraps around a moment and lets it breathe. Then I felt my husband's thumb brush lightly across my knuckles. That tiny touch nearly unraveled me more than the questions themselves, because when I looked at him, his expression had completely changed. He looked emotional. Like every answer I gave was revealing parts of me he had sensed for years but never fully reached. And for the first time that evening, I saw vulnerability in him too. Not fantasy, not excitement, vulnerability. The stranger continued speaking from behind the curtain while the piano carried softly through the room. Tell me something you wish people understood about you. The answer came too quickly this time. That being calm doesn't mean being empty. My own words surprised me. I felt my husband shift beside me. I didn't even need to look to know those words hit him hard, because they were true. So much of my life had become routine, organized, predictable. I smiled when expected. I carried responsibilities quietly. I moved through our days smoothly enough that people assumed I needed nothing deeper. But sitting there in candlelight, listening to a faceless stranger ask gentle questions, while my husband watched beside me, I realized how desperately I missed being emotionally discovered. The voice softened further. And what do you think your husband sees when he looks at you? That question finally made me turn toward him. Really turn. The music blurred around us. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then my husband answered for me. I think, he said carefully, I see someone who learned how to hold herself together so well that even she forgot how much she feels. The breath caught in my throat, because no one had ever described me that accurately before. Not even me. The stranger behind the curtain went silent after that, almost respectfully allowing the moment to belong to us instead. And my husband kept looking at me like he'd uncovered something sacred. His eyes moved across my face slowly, almost disbelievingly, like he was seeing familiar features arranged into someone entirely new. I could barely breathe under the weight of that gaze. You're shaking, he whispered. I know. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The rest of the evening unfolded gently after that. Questions became stories. Stories became laughter. At one point, the stranger asked what memory we returned to most often in our marriage. And my husband immediately answered before I could. Our first apartment, he said. I smiled instantly. Tiny kitchen, broken heater, cheap curtains that never stayed closed properly. But we danced there constantly, barefoot, half-finished dinners forgotten on counters, while old songs played from a speaker that only worked if you hit it twice. You used to pull me close whenever you were overwhelmed, I reminded him quietly. I still want to. His voice nearly undid me, because beneath all the mystery of the evening, that was the real truth sitting between us. He missed closeness. Not just physical closeness, the kind where two people stop hiding their inner worlds from each other. Eventually, the curtain shifted slightly, just enough for me to glimpse the outline of a man standing behind it. Only a silhouette, nothing more, and somehow that made the moment infinitely more powerful. No face to attach meaning to, no reality strong enough to break the atmosphere we'd built all evening. Just a voice, a presence, a mirror held gently toward parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Then the piano music softened into its final song, and the voice behind the curtain spoke one last time. Sometimes, he said quietly, the most intimate thing in the world is simply being witnessed honestly. The room fell silent after that. No dramatic ending, no reveal, just the sound of glasses clinking softly somewhere in the distance while candlelight flickered. Against velvet walls, my husband stood first, offering me his hand. And the way he looked at me in that moment, I still don't fully know how to describe it. Pride, wonder, desire, emotion so intense it almost looked painful. Like he had spent years loving one version of me, only to discover there were entire hidden rooms inside. My heart he had never walked through before. Outside, the city air felt cool against my skin. We barely spoke while walking to the car, not because anything was wrong, because everything felt too full for words. When we finally stopped beside the passenger door, He reached up slowly and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. Such a small gesture, but his hand trembled slightly when he did it. I didn't expect tonight to affect me this much, he admitted. I looked at him carefully. Why did you want this? The answer came immediately. Because I wanted to watch someone remind you who you are. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. And suddenly I understood the real fantasy he'd been carrying all along. It was never about mystery. Never about another voice behind a curtain. It was about watching me come alive again. Watching confidence return to places where routine had quietly settled. Watching me feel seen. I stepped closer then until our foreheads rested together beneath the dim streetlight, and for a long moment neither of us moved. The city blurred around us. Traffic, music from distant bars, cold evening air. None of it mattered, because standing there with him, I realized something beautiful and terrifying at the same time. After all these years together, we still had undiscovered versions of each other waiting to be found, and somehow that felt more intimate than anything else ever could.